Sorry.
Happens.
Sorry, everyone. Please continue.
Everyone back? I think so. Um, yeah. What I was saying is that basically at the beginning of a word, there's not really much of a point in spelling Aleph because you usually don't. And so having a chet spelling at the beginning of a word is like, especially if it's consistent, likely refers to something other than a glottal stop. If it happens once, it can be a glottal stop. There are attestations for that, but yeah, the situation is weird. Are there any questions on Rhine and Akkadian that I can answer? Or remarks, maybe, observations? Or rather,
In my own town in Homs, some words that begins with Ghain is actually spelled with Khet. Like my grandmother used to say خسلت instead of غسلت. I washed myself. I'm not sure it's the same process happened here.
I mean, I think to me it would seem very logical for Rhein to go to Chet. I think that's a very reasonable sound change, especially since Rhein is a rather rare consonant in Proto-Semitic in general and in Akkadian. We don't have a lot of words in Akkadian that go back to Rhein. And as I said, that appears to be what happened in Old Assyrian, this change Rhein to Chet. But the situation seems more complicated in Babylonian. So maybe it did go to Chet. Well, it did for sure go to Chet in some cases, for example, Tsechru. But I'm not sure about what factors contributed to that. Yeah. All right. An interesting parallel to Rhine and Akkadian is the case in Ethiopia, the situation in Ethiopic. Both in its like scientific history as in just like what's happening, because in Ethiopic we have the same situation where originally for a long time it was like traditionally assumed that Rhein was reflected as one consonant and that consonant was Ein. And then there was, and I think, for example, in the Comparative Dictionary of Ge'ez by Leslau, he has very few etymologies with Chet, like correspondences with Chet. But it was once again Leonid Kogan who showed that this is not really the case. So there are reflexes of Rhein as Ein. For example, we have this root here, which is exists, for example, in Arabic, Gharib, stranger. So we have that in Tigre, Arba, to get lost, Tigrinya, Araba, to disappear. Then we have this root with Rhein, which appears in Ge'ez as Allala, in Tigrinya as Allala, to die. But there are also reflexes as Chet, or in the later Ethiopic languages like Tigre and Tigrinya as Chet, because they merged Chet and Chet. So there's, for example, the root Rariba, which we know from Ugaritic and Arabic, for example, and modern South Arabian, I think. Gez Ruchba, to be hungry, and Tigre Rahab, hunger. And then we already saw this root in Akkadian. In Ge'ez, it's Sapha to dip and Sapha to season in Tigre, Tigrinya, Sapha to dip. And generally, there are more reflexes as Ein, but there's a sizable amount as Chet. And once again, it makes sense to look at the position within the word. So reflexes is Ein, for example, and this table here, I've taken, like in his article, Kogan has examples that he considers convincing, and then there's examples that he thinks are possible but not super convincing. And so within the brackets is the number of total examples, and outside them is the number of examples he lists as convincing. And so ein seems to be the preferred reflex at the beginning of a word, whereas het or het seems to be the preferred reflex in the middle of the word. And actually, like, especially if you only look at like the convincing examples, it seems like that could be a fairly good rule. So this situation doesn't seem quite as complicated as in Akkadian, but also I think the spelling system is just better. Yeah. So in general, I think it's, yeah, rein is a weird consonant in Semitic. It is one of the rarer consonants, although its rarity varies heavily between languages. For example, Arabic has a lot of rein, and I think Akkadian has very little words that go back to rein. Kogan at one point considers that rein might have been a secondary development from ein in pre-Proto-Semitic, based on the fact that rein appears to have like that there appear to be a lot of roots with rein that feature resh or lamed within them, which could have caused the fact. But I think that's like really beyond anything we can verify or falsify at this point. In any way, it makes a lot of problems, and I can understand Ruzhitschka, who tried to get rid of it. Yeah. Are there any questions now about red, rein, or general remarks?
No one has any questions? Well, thank you, Jonathan. That was really, really lovely. I enjoyed it very much. I'm sure everyone else did as well.
It's a really interesting topic, just a little frustrating at times.
It is very, very frustrating. I completely agree. And I think you dealt with it really magnificently. So thank you for that. So no one has any questions? And I think we can talk a little bit about Central Semitic and the Central Semitic hypothesis, which unfortunately does not, I guess, involve a lot of Het and Ein or Rein things, but yeah. So does anyone remember which languages are classified as Central Semitic? What that classification is based on? Anything? Anyone? It's almost the end of the. Thank
sorry.
you.
South Arabia, right?
Yeah.
Or Arabic or South Arabic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's Central Semitic is Arabic, which is North Arabian, and also Old South Arabian, but also Northwest Semitic. So all of these three branches together. And the first thing to talk about when we say why they're classified together is the imperfect yafalu or yaprusu or something like that. So the vowel that is added that in Akkadian we know as the subordinate marker. We see that inflection in these languages, in the Central Semitic languages, as the regular imperfect instead of ipagas, which has been completely ousted. Any questions so far? So any other features you know from Central Semitic or things that you think, because these languages are very, very similar. So Northwest Semitic, Arabic, They have very similar grammars in many ways. So does anyone?
I'm not sure, but maybe like the G perfect katana with like the final R. Is that person?
The G perfect Katala is also in Ethio-Semitic, so it's usually considered as a West Semitic phenomenon. But it is also a lot of about the G. You're right about that. The prefix conjugation that we also have the cohortative or subjunctive, like all the moods, the different moods. So the indicative mood, the subjunctive mood, the adjussive, which is also past, which is also parallel to the Akkadian past. So this is in Arabic lam yaf'al or something like that. In biblical Hebrew, vayifal, vayetze, vayelech. And the fourth mood, which is rarer, but also exists in, at least in Hebrew and in Arabic, is the energetic, with an added an and sometimes anna. Any other features of Central Semitic?
Do they all have internal passive?
Yes, internal passive, that's a good one. But also modern South Arabian has internal passive, so that's difficult to explain. But yes, all Central Semitic languages have internal passive. We can see it in Ugaritic, we can see it in Hebrew, we can see it in Arabic. In Aramaic, it seems to have been lost at a very early stage. I think already Imperial Aramaic has only remnants, relics of an internal passive. I think also only in the G. Yeah, the two other features that have appeared before
I
the
think
internal
T,
passive. Yeah, sorry.
that T suffix instead of K suffix for قتلت.
Yes, that's a good one. Yeah. But okay, so you're right that something that divides West Semitic is that we have in Central Semitic the T in the suffix conjugation in the first and second persons, and in non-Central Semitic, which is in West Semitic, which is not in Central Semitic, that means modern South Arabian and Ethio-Semitic, we have kaf in the first and second persons, which uh, is very easily derivable, in my opinion, from the Akkadian system, which has kaf for the first person and taf for the second persons. So I think that's a feasible solution. So yeah, you're right. This is another feature of Central Semitic. The other ones are the definite article that in most of the languages it's prefixed, but in Aramaic it's suffixed. Also in Old South Arabian it's suffixed, and it's based on hey, lamed, nun, or something like that. The aleph is just some kind of compensation for the hey. And to define it also by something that it doesn't have those complicated causative stems like the CD, CL, CR that we find in non-Central Semitic, only a regular causative and irregular causative reflexive. Any questions so far?
Do they all have the prefix T? I mean, before the first radical instead of between the first and second one?
Very good question. No, and I think it will appear in the continuing slides. So in Central Semitic, in Arabic, you have a prefixed T in the TD, but an infixed T in the GT. So ifta'ala, that's the eighth form in Arabic. So ifta'ala, that's the eighth form. Tafa'ala, that's the fifth form. That's the TD. But in Northwest Semitic, no. In Canaanite and Aramaic, it's usually prefixed unless there's a sibilant as the first radical. And in Ugaritic, I think it's in Ugaritic it's like Arabic, right? But maybe I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They're both in Ugaritic, I guess.
Yeah, so
I think.
GT and TD, right? But that's okay, but we only assume that because we know that from Hebrew. So yeah, I guess.
And in Aramaic, there, there's
Sorry,
only
from
T,
Arabic.
T prefix.
Yeah, Aramaic only, yeah, you're right. Aramaic mostly prefixes it. But there's also forms of in Aramaic, I think, where there's metathesis with the first radical sibilant, right? Like in
Yeah,
Hebrew.
except for metathesis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. In Old South Arabian, I think in some of the languages it's only infixed, like in Akkadian or in modern South Arabian, and in some of the languages it's either or, like both. Sometimes that, sometimes that, like Central Semitic. So yeah, Old South Arabian is pretty much divided between Central Semitic and non-Central Semitic, or on the boundary. Another nice feature that we find is that Geminate verbs have very special conjugations. So they have slightly special conjugations in Geminate verbs are verbs that have, or roots that have the second and the third radical identical. So they have slightly special conjugations in Akkadian and in Ethio-Semitic, but in modern South Arabian and in Central Semitic, they have crazy conjugations. I don't know if you've encountered those. I do not recommend. In Arabic, it's actually relatively easy. And there is the Bart Ginsburg law. Does anyone remember what that was?
It's changing of the second vowel or based off the.
Yeah, pretty much that. Like that the vowel of the personal prefix is determined by the thematic vowel of the verb, so that we have yaprus, yapris, and yipras. So no one really knows which languages are affected by this law, by Barth Ginsburg's law. Even the languages that have it, like Hebrew or Arabic, have it only in certain places. So no one really knows if this is a Central Semitic thing or a wider thing or a narrower thing. Actually, absolutely no one has any idea. So that's because vowels, especially non-stressed vowels, are usually very hard to reconstruct. Any other question? So the decades are plurals in Central Semitic. I think also in modern South Arabian, but I'm not sure about 20. It's nice that even 20 just is tens, not even two tens. Like you have a dual, but you use the plural tens for the word for 20. That's nice. And also 30s is just like threes, 40s is just like fours, and so on, as opposed to Ethio-Semitic and Akkadian using the duals for some reason to represent all the decades. Okay, any questions so far? Is everything clear? Sure, okay. So some features that split languages within Central Semitic. So I like to think of these as features on a continuum, say with Ugaritic on one side and Sabbaic on the other, or something like that. So some northern or northwestern language on one side and some southeastern on the other, maybe two axes. For example, just a few languages have M for the plural, so Im for the masculine plural, so Canaanite and Ugaritic, while all the other ones, Arabic and Old North Arabian and Aramaic and Old South Arabian, but also modern South Arabian and Ethio-Semitic have Nun, and Somalian, which is a weird form of Aramaic, Old Aramaic, is the only one to have neither, like Akkadian, so just U and E as the plural markers. There is one Canaanite language that has N, which is Moabite. But other than that, the languages have M. Any question regarding this? Okay, Aramaic has no end stem. That is one of the things that define it, which is a little bit sad or funny, but if you want to know if a certain text is in Aramaic, not finding an end stem will help. I'm sorry. Aramaic also lost the internal passive, as I hinted earlier. So it uses only the T for passives, just like Akkadian and Ethio-Semitic. So the GT, the TG, the TD, and the TC. Hebrew lost the causative reflexive and the G internal passive eventually. So in biblical Hebrew, we still see remnants of the G internal passive in words like lukach, yukach, but you don't see that afterwards really. And Arabic has only in the vowels of derived stems and verbal stems in general, like fa'ala. There are other forms of the G stem, but all the other ones have just So fa'ala, fa'ala, af'ala, tafa'ala, infa'ala, ifta'ala, and so forth. Some of the other languages, specifically Central Semitic languages or Northwest Semitic languages, have different vowels there. So let's first talk about Arabic, because there are some features of Arabic that are essentially reconstructed to Proto-Central Semitic, and that's the 4 moods of the prefix conjugation. But the second feature here is not reconstructed to Proto-Central Semitic, as I said, and the case system is pretty much what we would expect from even Proto-Semitic. So same as Akkadian pretty much. If we look at the suffix conjugation of the G stem, does anyone want to, Omar, do you want to read and maybe explain what this is?
Sure. فعلت, I did. فعلت, you did. فعلتي, you feminine did. فعل, he did. فعلت, she did. فعلتما, you both did. فعل again here.
Yeah, and this is marked the fa'alna, they feminine plural did.
Okay.
Yeah, because Arabic is pretty much the only language to have this na, this n here, which is probably taken from, does anyone want to guess? Thank you.
From hunna. This known from hunna.
Yeah, from hunna and also from tafalna, yafalna.
Okay.
So, the future, which this is also yeah, from here. So this is also a Central Semitic feature that can be seen also in modern South Arabian, but not in Ethio-Semitic or in Akkadian. This yafulna or tafulna suffix. Any question? So this is the jussive. That was the jussive. This is, no, wait. This is the jussive, or the, also be used as a negated past. Before it. And this is pretty much identical to the preterite in Akkadian, except for this na. And this is the imperfect, which is pretty much parallel to the subordinative in at least certain varieties of Akkadian. So you just add u, and if there's a longer suffix, you add na. For example, the second feminine plural and the third feminine plural are just the same in all of them, just in these two. This is the.
Excuse me. I think there's something wrong with your microphone. I'm hearing constantly the noise.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear now better?
Yeah, much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So this is the subjunctive mood, or the mansub in Arabic, which does not really have a parallel in Akkadian, I think, but maybe, I don't know. You see that the longer forms have just no suffix at all, and the shorter forms are just added with an a. And this is the energetic mood. So all of these four moods are basically attested and reconstructed for Central Semitic. So they're tested in Old South Arabian, Hebrew, some of them, or remnants of them, even in Aramaic, Ugaritic, of course, and Arabic. Okay. Chris has mentioned the internal passive, which is in Arabic formed by changing the vowel pattern to ue. So fu'ila, 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 uf'ila, and so forth in the past. And to u'a in the prefix conjugation. Uf'al, ufa'al, ufa'al, uf'al, and so on. So this mechanism does not exist outside Central Semitic except in modern South Arabian. And this is just a list of some features that some are shared and some are not shared between the different Semitic languages, just to show why these classifications are so difficult or notorious. So for example, the fa'ala, the G past with the as, with all as, that's the situation in Ethio-Semitic and in Arabic, maybe in modern South Arabian and in Northwest Semitic, but it's not the situation in Akkadian. The liyaful exists in Akkadian, somewhat in Ethio-Semitic, somewhat in modern South Arabian, exists in Arabic, rare in Northwest Semitic. The imperfect yafalu does not exist in any of these languages, but exists in Arabic and Northwest Semitic. But it's really hard to tell in Northwest Semitic. It's not like we have this u really written many times, just in Arabic mostly. The passive past with the u vowel does not exist in Akkadian and Ethio-Semitic, but does in modern South Arabian and Arabic and Northwest Semitic. I did not write the second vowel because in Arabic it's E, but in Northwest Semitic it probably was A or something. Yes, the passive jussive, yufal, pretty much the same. The T for the third feminine plural, which is common between modern South Arabian and Northwest Semitic, or specifically Canaanite. And prima nun, which is shared by Akkadian and Northwest Semitic. So some of these features have interesting distributions. Another interesting feature in Arabic is initial clusters. So there's the imperative paradigm, uf'ul, uf'uli, uf'ula, uf'ulu, uf'ulna. So this u prefix or e in the other vowel classes is elided whenever this word is not phrase initial, so, or utterance initial. So even if you add the conjunction wa before it, it's just waf'ul. So the question is whether or not Central Semitic allowed, or Proto-Central Semitic, or Proto-Semitic for that matter, allowed consonant clusters. But there's also like these words, bin, sim, and ithnani, all really, or ibn, ism, ithnani, all really act the same in this way of the clustering in Hebrew and Arabic. And say, for example, in Akkadian, the word shumu or the word shina has no problem with the first vowel there. Like the first vowel there is always present, for all I know. So it's never shmu or shna. Um, any question about the initial clusters? So in Hebrew, we also don't see this when the word is on its own. So the word is ben and shem, but we do see it in the inflection bni and shmi, as opposed to if there was a regular tzere there, for example, the word etz would conjugates etzi etzcha with a tzere, but bni shmi with a schwa.
What is the situation like outside of Central and East Semitic with like these words, or like what does it look like regarding word initial consonant clusters?
So that's pretty much the problem that, well, at least the word for two does not really exist or at least this word for two exactly does not exist in Ethio-Semitic, but in modern South Arabian, it does start with a cluster, but this cluster can be also from as a result of vowel deletion that was earlier, so it's hard to tell. But the word for name, for example, has a vowel, even a long vowel in some of the languages in modern South Arabian, and a short vowel which could come from an u in Ethio-Semitic, so like an so I would assume that this is a Central Semitic phenomenon, more than that, or just that there's no evidence for it happening really outside Central Semitic, no hard evidence, at least. Thank you for the question. Any other question? So there's also the word for woman or wife, man, and the word for but. Very funny. This is the conjugation of the D stem. So this is what I said is a little bit special in Arabic, that Arabic has only the A vowel here. But if we look at other languages, does anyone remember what this stem looks like in other languages? Please name whichever you want. This suffix conjugation of the D stem. Say the third masculine singular, which in Arabic is fa'ala. What's that in other languages? Does anyone know? So for example, in Hebrew, it's piel with two E's, like with an E and an A, which also comes from an E, I guess. So E. In Aramaic, it's pa'il with A-I. And in Akkadian, if I'm not wrong, in Babylonian, it's purrus with two U's, and in Assyrian, parrus with A-U, which is weird. So, yeah. This stem does not really exist in modern South Arabian, but only derived stems from it exist. So it's a little bit hard to tell if this happened there or not. However, the prefix conjugation, or the short prefix conjugation of the D stem, that's exactly the same in all of the languages. So this table could have been easily transported to an old Babylonian grammar book. So it's pretty much the same with such slight differences. And also in Hebrew and in Aramaic and so forth. Any question about the D stem? So then there's the L stem, which is kind of more a South Semitic phenomenon, but also remnants of it exist probably in Ugaritic and in Canaanite, which is exactly like the D stem, except with a long vowel instead of the geminate. So fa'ala and so forth. Very easy to remember, exactly the same conjugation. And then there's the C stem, which has also in Arabic af'ala, in Hebrew hif'il, two E vowels, in Aramaic af'il, a'e, a'i, and in Akkadian, the same, exactly the same as before. Shuprus in Babylonian, and Shupris. No, sorry, Shaprus in Assyrian. So the D stem and the C stem have the same conjugation, basically. They in all of the languages, they are parallel to each other. Something interesting about Arabic is that the form that even Arab grammarians reconstruct as yu'af'il to af'il has changed into uf'il and not af'il. In most of the languages, in most of the Semitic languages, there is a remnant of the a vowel, which also, I guess, expresses the hey, but in Arabic, there is no remnant of that at all, and only the u prefix vowel is retained. So this is different from Aramaic, yaf'il, from yahaf'il, Hebrew, yaf'il, and modern South Arabian, yaf'il, yahaf'il, and so on. Any question about that? Okay. So just another few comparisons. So the yufa'il, yuhaf'il form can be found in pretty much all over Semitic, but the fa'ala, haf'ala form only in Ethio-Semitic and Arabic. And the imperative, haf'il, a little bit more widespread. So it includes Assyrian and Arabic. So what's weird about Arabic having u there, one of the weird things is that the imperative is af'il, which is exactly cognate with the other languages, but usually, or in all of the Semitic languages, there is an identity between the jussive or the ipus stem and the purus, the imperative stem. But here they're from a different stem, uf'il and af'il. So if we look only at uf'il, we find that it exists only in Arabic, but the af'il from all the other languages still exist in Arabic as well. And a little bit about T stems confused with a first radical sibilant. We will have a forced break again soon, sorry. Any questions so far? I know that it's very, very complicated, I'm sorry. I promise that it will end soon. No? Nothing? You sure? So if we look only at the stems, so N stem for 3 radicals, we have that in Arabic and in Northwest Semitic, so Central Semitic, but we don't really have that in modern South Arabian and in Ethio-Semitic, but we do have that in Akkadian as well. And the GT, the DT, and the Shin T, and here I discuss the placing of the T, which is different between the languages. Akkadian and modern South Arabian always infix, Ethio-Semitic always prefixes, and Arabic sometimes prefixes, sometimes infixes. Northwest Semitic usually prefix, sometimes infix when there's a sibilant. Any questions? Everyone left. Okay, so a bit about the case system, which we have already seen amply. So just mentioning or reminding that these are the definitions for the cases. The nominative, the accusative, and the genitive. And this is exactly the way we find them both in Arabic and in Akkadian. Probably remnants of a similar system can be found in the Old Biblian dialect of Phoenician and in Somalian. And probably this system was also maintained by Sabaic, and we know it was maintained by Ugaritic as well. The next thing that I would like to talk about that I know is something that, I don't know, it exists in certain languages and in certain languages it doesn't. The gemination of the third radical. So Arabic has this as the ninth stem and the